IVM.
कृपया ध्यान दीजिए, the language used on the podcast may not be fit for consumption. We warn you, tread carefully. But listen, yaar, don't be so conservative. I just have a suggestion before we start the podcast. We've got a very interesting man worth millions of dollars coming on the show in a few seconds. I just got a very small thought, which is since everyone's worried about 65 and 70 plus during this COVID bimari and them having a risk factor which is unparalleled, etc., why don't we do the right sensitive thing and put all the old people over this age bracket or in this age bracket in a village away from India, like maybe Sri Lanka or something. We keep them there for some time. We pay for their, fun and games. There's COVID-free out there. And at the right time, we bring them back. This is my humble suggestion to the PMO. I'm going to press send and hopefully they will answer as quickly as possible.
Have you ever wondered how successful people do their thing? How do they navigate the challenges they often face? Are you wondering about the future of restaurants, film, education, technology, and everything else in between? Hi, I'm Gauri Devidayal, best known for being one of the brains behind The Table, an award-winning restaurant in Bombay. One thing my life as a restaurateur has given me is the opportunity to meet with some truly inspiring people, most often just by chatting with strangers at the community table. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about learning the new dimensions of business and understanding how different people swim this sea. It's an opportunity for me to pick their brains and ask them all the questions on my mind, whether it's about learning from their past experiences or talking about future trends. Through their journeys, stories, and insights, I hope you too, like me, will come away inspired and energized. So come, join me every Wednesday with your favorite drink because this round is on me.
But in the meantime, we have been sent one of the entrepreneurs of the century. Well, I know him. He's a senior from school and a senior from South Mumbai. Everybody knows who Rajeev Samant is. But more importantly, Rajeev, the biodata that I've got of yours is some 600 pages. I've tried to bring it down to 3-4 lines.
Sorry about that, man. I didn't realize I'd achieved that much.
You're huge. You have no idea. I mean, Salman Rushdie ran out of words trying to write your bit. But so do we call entrepreneur for sure, obviously, because you reinvented the wheel here and we'll come to all that. But what is sommelier exactly? The sommelier is the wine expert, am I right?
Yeah, sommelier is normally the guy or lady who serves you your wine at a restaurant and then talks to you about it. That's at basis what a sommelier is. Then of course you have your grades of sommelier, so you can go up from that to being a grand poobah who knows it all about various terroirs, etc. But basically a sommelier basically brings you the wine that you like to pair with the food that you like or don't like or whatever, and that's a sommelier who knows a lot about
basically
about good wine and bad wine.
A glorified waiter, in other words. I just want to clarify that part.
Oh, that's very...
Have I upset the industry?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, so let's put it in perspective. You are first and foremost an entrepreneur, but your story is very interesting. You were in your school here, one of those fancy schools where people with lots of money send their children. I can't mention the name because Cathedral doesn't appreciate it. And then you went to Stanford, top of the class, all that, did very well, the whole academics, 9 yards, etc. Joined Oracle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I wouldn't say top of the class all through, but thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. Nobody gets into Stanford just by, applying. It's not that simple. And I remember in the old days, people from this part of Mumbai would go to America and then, get in the corporate world, generally speaking, and, achieve great things. Sundar Pichai comes to mind. Don't correct me and say he wasn't in school. Nobody will check here. Nobody will listen to us. But yeah, so you went to Oracle. You did everything correctly. The main question is, how did you suddenly get into wine? I mean, they say you had this moment like the Buddha where light hit you and boom, you knew. But what exactly happened?
So, Cyrus, yes, I did have this moment. My dad was an entrepreneur. Before his time, all his friends were sort of, very professional, doing the good stuff, working at levers and, at a law firm, etc. And my dad decided to strike out on his own and go into a business which he knew nothing about, which was shipping services. And, he did really well. So he started with pretty much nothing and built something up to the extent he was able to send me to that nice school down in South Bombay. That would have been unthinkable for him.
Whose name we can't mention because Cathedral doesn't like it. So I just want to keep mentioning that, yeah.
So, my dad grew up squatting on dirt floors in a municipal school in Nashik.
What are you saying? Really?
Absolutely.
This is Suresh Samant from the Bombay Gym when I was a young boy.
When he was a kid, used to squat on a municipal school floor.
Wow, I wouldn't believe that, having met him as a young man, huh?
And he was born in Nashik, and that's, that has a lot to do with how come this whole thing happened. So in a way, I was going back to my roots. So, I had the entrepreneurial roots in the family. I had seen my dad, go through his entrepreneurial journey. And when that happens, I think that always stays with you, right? It's like if your dad's a smoker, then you're more likely to be a smoker. I would say probably if your dad or your mom is an entrepreneur, you're more likely to be one. So, I was sitting at my desk at Oracle.
Just one sec. I'm just sending this message to Rahul Gandhi because now this is good news for him. Yeah.
Was his dad a smoker?
Well, one of the above. Huh.
So, I was sitting at my desk looking out on Highway 101, Silicon Valley, and, everything's so nice, beautiful apartment in San Francisco, nice car, living the life. Something was missing. And that something was, that feeling of being just one cog in this huge corporate wheel. It did not work for me. I just realized how small and insignificant and tiny I was. Listen, with full respect to everybody out there who's a corporate cog listening, you're not what I was. I was a real cog in the wheel. And, I just said, man, one life to live. I've come to this amazing place, got all these amazing notions. And at Stanford, they really challenged you to think big, think different, go your own path, follow your own path, make a difference. Those are the kinds of things they always talked about, not being a good citizen and following orders. Never, right? So that was also within me. One day I just said, one life to live. Is this what I want to do? Stare at a computer screen? But of course, that's what I'm doing right now with you.
Yeah, so am I.
So full circle. But, and I said, you know what? No, that's not what I want to do. I want to do something cool. I want to do something different. I'm a cool guy. I think differently. So, you know what? Let's take a chance. Worst thing happens, whatever I try to do doesn't work. You know what? There's always safety net of daddy and mommy. So I said, right, I'm the exact kind of guy who should do this. I walked into my boss's office the next morning, quit my job. He was stunned.
So without a plan, but you just said, I don't want this. There was no plan about wine.
No. I had no idea at that point that I was going to make wine. I had no idea. I was kind of thinking agriculture, but the first thing I had in mind was to travel the world for a year, backpack around the world. And I could not recommend that highly enough for anybody listening to this podcast. The way you get to know yourself is if you say adios to everyone, pack your house, take a backpack and just go to a country you don't know.
God, now I'm in big trouble, Rajeev Samant. Big trouble because my son is just saying that he's in the 11th. He wants to take a gap year and travel the world. I've been screaming at him saying,
go for it. Mikhail, go for it.
But that's 1 year less earnings. Middle class India teaches you 1 year less earnings when you're 60.
So 1 year less earnings was the year of my life.
Right.
Mexico. I didn't speak any Spanish. People told me I was going to be found, my body would be found the next day. I went into Tijuana, the drug capital of...
Drug capital, yeah.
I didn't know all about that, but anyway, I made it back alive. After some amazing adventures, I went to Thailand for a few months.
So all unplanned, everything unplanned. You just go to the country, there's no plan.
Landed up on the beaches of Kopangan. This is we're talking about in 1992. Wow. It was a wild scene. And then landed up back in India. Then came back to India. And I said, you know what? One of the things that was always in my mind was that if I'm going to do something, let's do it back in India. Let's help the country where I was born. I'm going to make a much bigger impact there than if I do something cool in California. So there was always that sort of that social aspect to it in the back of my mind.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Just if I can interrupt for a second, Rajeev, what do the parents say? I'm just thinking because you're on Stanford, you're the cream of the crop, so to speak, and all that. In a sense, you've just turned your back on that, which is quite a strong statement. Were they worried?
They were very upset. The whole bubble had been burst. They were loving writing the story all this time. Oh, our beta got into Stanford. Oh, he's doing a master's now. Oh, he's got into Oracle. It was so it's so cool for all that dinner party chat. And then suddenly, our beta has just quit his job.
He's in Tijuana.
And nobody knows where he is because there were no mobile phones, right? So we haven't heard from him for a month. So, that was a bit of a twist. So yeah, they were not happy. So I landed up back in India, and first thing is I went to Daddy and said, hey, let me join your company. He said, no way, Jose, because I'd been to Mexico. I changed my, no, just joking.
Fair enough. This is a really stupid podcast. If you want to make ridiculous comments from time to time, we'll be very thankful for it. Yeah.
For a long time, Cyrus. I know I couldn't get more stupid.
There you go.
So I might as well go fully for it.
Go for it. Plunge.
So my dad said, no way. My older brother was already working with him. He had a partner. He said, well, whatever you do, I'll support you. So go for it. Whatever you want to do. So I wandered around and we landed up at Nashik for a family function. And we landed up at this place where I am right now, this magical spot, which has given me so much and given the world of wine so much, which is where Sula came up. At that time, it was 10 acres of grass as tall as a tree with lots of cobras and leopards and hares, etc., running underfoot. It was totally wild, no electricity, no phone line in this valley, Gangapur Valley. And I just saw it and I fell in love instantly. And I do that a lot normally with, used to be with members of the fairer sex. In this case, for the first time, it was with a piece of land with the hills around and the lake around. And
I can draw a metaphor there as well, but we'll leave it, yeah?
There we go. I missed that one. Yeah. My dad was trying to sell it for the pitiable sum of 30,000 rupees an acre. And I looked at him, I said, you know what? I don't think that's a good idea. This sort of reminds me of California. I want to do organic farming right here. So organic farming was something that had started happening, in California. It had not yet really come to India. I thought I would be the first organic farmer in India. So that was the first leg of the story. I was an abject failure. That's the second leg. Abject failure. Everything I grew, I had to throw away. Then I learned about the sabzi mandi. So I went, I rode on the top of my tomato truck with the karat of tambatar, as the crates of tomatoes are called in Nashik, to meet the guy who does jiggly wiggly under a handkerchief for you to figure out the price of your tomatoes, and you just realize,
what the hell does that mean? Just please, he puts what under the handkerchief?
So I don't know. Have you ever been to a sabzi mandi in
I have in Chondi or Alibag in those.
Wholesale produce market where it's dominated by these political honcho traders, and they have this weird sign language that they use. They put a hanky on top of that. The two hands meet. Of course, now I don't know what they're doing in the age of COVID.
Yeah.
A mask, I guess. They put a hanky on top of the two hands and they do the hanky moves, and then you're told what your price is of your tomatoes. Yeah. It's crazy.
This is better than Stanford, brother. This is another university that needs to be explored.
I saw this and said, oh my God, I am so out of my depth here. I don't have a chance. So I realized that I had to get into processing something. And I looked around, and then I realized that Nashik was where all of India's grapes, most of India's grapes are grown. Mm-hmm. And they were exporting these grapes to the supermarkets in the UK, to Tesco's, to Sainsbury's. So they were making really good quality grapes. And I'm scratching my head. I was bald even then. And suddenly said, hey, grapes means wine, right? Why is there no wine here?
So the export grapes never went to make wine, just for grapes.
Export grapes, there are different kinds of grapes, right? There's table grapes, which are the eating grapes, your Thompson seedless, etc., which you buy in the bazaar and you gobble down. And wine grapes are very different. They are bred to make really good wine. They are small, squishy, with seeds in them.
Let me understand this. So the grapes that make wine are not the grapes we eat?
No, they're not. Absolutely.
What are you saying?
Yeah, so when you drink a Chardonnay wine, that comes from a Chardonnay grape. When you eat a grape, it's a seedless grape. They're totally different. So Thompson seedless grapes make horrible wine. Make innocuous, slightly
wine which your competition basically makes, is what you're saying.
No, Cyrus, you said it, not
I said it.
As I remember you guys, this guy was, I think, 5 or 6 years younger than me in school. Was my younger brother's class.
Jaideep's class, yeah.
Always a riot. So
they said Jaideep stole color pencils from me in the 10th standard. They've not yet returned. You guys have made millions with Sula. Can I get my Camlin? It's, I think, a 10 color pencils in a pack thing.
Oh man, those are the color pencils I used for my first accounts. You're part of the story, Cyrus.
There you go. They're lucky for some. Yeah, sorry. Back in the flow. So, so you met these guys. You're buying vegetables, and you have this moment about grapes into wine.
Aha! I said, look, I am the right guy in the right place at the right time. I've got my Nashik connection, so I knew people in Nashik who could help me get through all of that stuff. I come from Bombay, so I knew the people who I would sell the wine to. So Rahul Akerkar was just starting up. Indigo was about to start up Indigo the next year, followed by A.D. Singh the year after that with Olive. Those were, as you well remember, Mumbai's two great, Bombay's two great iconic restaurants.
So you three guys all created a sort of entrepreneurial surge at the same time, if you will.
Yeah, we were very much part of the first surge, and we very much thrived off each other. And it was great. It was a great time. We really felt like we were on top of the world, along with Tommy and the boys at the Ghetto. They were even before us.
Yes, of course.
So when I got back to Bombay, there were two places I hung out: Bombay Gym Bar Night, where I had this severe bad luck of bumping into you every Friday night, and then the Ghetto. So the Ghetto, when it opened, first 10 nights that it opened, I think I was there 9 out of 10 nights. And Indigo, when it first opened, first 10 nights, I was there 9 out of 10. So you can tell my slightly obsessive behavior. So I said, I can sell the wine to these guys, right? I thought, okay, I didn't realize how difficult it was all going to be. And then plus, having spent time in California, I can bring in some Californian expertise for the grape growing and the winemaking. So, hey, and then there's my dad who said, I'll support you, Bete, in whatever you do. So who's better than me in the position that I'm in? I've just landed up in India's grape country. Hey, I'm going to make wine, and I'm going to make good wine. So that's how I started.
But Rajeev, so you didn't have any sort of degree in wine at all. I don't mean professional degree, but you hadn't really trained or studied the market. You just like wine at that point.
Absolutely. I've never had any formal education in wine. I had a bachelor's degree in quantitative economics and a master's in industrial engineering. Those are good degrees because they teach you also how to be an entrepreneur.
But it's almost par for the course that all successful stories, the person has studied something completely absurd to what he ends up doing. I mean, there's no connection.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And that happened to me. And I had started drinking wine when I was in California. So I had a Californian girlfriend who introduced me to the joys of cheap Blanc called White Zinfandel, which was, I can't drink it today, but that was what I drank,
You can't drink it because it's a very low brow sort of...
Sweet, yeah, it's sweet and it just does the trick real quick. You know what they say about champagne, liquor is quicker. And White Zinfandel was definitely quicker, but it worked on me as well. So that's all I knew about wine. I started drinking a little wine. I came back. I tried wine here. I said, oh, my God, this is horrible. This is not wine.
Oh, sorry, segue. What happened to the girlfriend?
That was 20.
You remember the wine, but you can't remember her.
No. She's a good friend. She continues to be a good friend. I always tell her, it's because you made me drink wine that I became a winemaker. So she's very proud of it now. So, she came from the town called Modesto, where the world's largest wine company, Gallo, is based. So It was all very providential. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I started drinking wine and I realized that there was no good wine being made in India. I said, hey, you know what? I think I can do this better.
So where we are in the story so far is that you started to make wine, right?
I mean, I had to figure out, could Nashik actually grow grapes? So this is where my studies of wine begin. Right, all self-taught. I went back to California, found a great guy called Kerry Damsky, who went to the best wine university in the world, UC Davis, who was willing to help me. He said, look, Rajeev, I don't know if we can make great wine in India and Nashik, but I'm sure we can make a decent, good, drinkable wine. I said, hey, man, that's all we need right now. Let's do it. And met some professors there, understood the whole climate classification system, and then figured out that, yes, in fact, India was not the hottest wine region, even though we are the wine region in the world closest to the tropic, to the equator, right? Wine in the world is made in temperate zones. Cyrus, I'm sure you know this.
I'm taking down notes.
And in India, we are making it in the tropics. So it's a full googly, and it's only possible because we're at a height. So Nashik is 600 meters, 2,000 feet above sea level. Bangalore, the other place where wine is grown, is, I think, 3,000 feet above sea level. And that's the reason the altitude is what makes it possible for us to grow wine in the tropics.
Wow, but you didn't know all this. This
No,
was like a punt when you began. As you went along the journey, you suddenly realized, okay, there's good and bad points happening.
I knew bung all. I was just one of those lucky guys, but you know what they say, luck favors the bold.
Yeah.
And I just kept jumping into it and kept jumping into funny situations.
So,
finally came through and got some grapes in the ground, got some vines. We had to bring the vines over from California. It was not actually technically allowed, so I had to break the law slightly.
oh, what do you mean not allowed?
And to bring it over. And so many, there were all sorts of quarantine restrictions. You had to bring it, and nobody actually here knew what was this. It was all
Wine is not a pet.
Oh. Wine is sort of a pet. Right now in a lockdown, it's my favorite pet.
So the whole lockdown, if you segue there for a second, and not allowing people to drink made no sense to me whatsoever, because you haven't seen a more depressed global phenomenon than this around the world.
It really, I think the government went a bit wrong on that, all over the rest of the world, except I think South Africa and India were basically the two places where they said, okay, we have a virus, so you can't drink. And, totally a knee-jerk reaction. Unfortunately, those who don't drink don't know what the joys of a drink are all about.
They correlated to going back home and beating your wife, which you can't just blame on alcohol. The guy's a psycho nutcase chute, to use Indian words. And, after 3 drinks, he does it faster, that's all. I mean, really,
yeah, and then the other thing is also make sanitizer easily available, so somebody who can't get a nice glass of, hopefully our wine drinkers are not drinking sanitizer, but there's many other people.
It's got alcohol, so it's a fair point. Yeah.
That was a very tough for us. We've been through a very tough time, as have many other people. Luckily, we are coming through nicely on the other side now. Sun is shining again, even here in Nashik. The monsoon clouds are heading back towards the Arabian Sea, and the sun is shining. And you know what? The sun is shining for the wine industry again. But we've been through 3 very tough months. Absolutely. And I didn't understand the whole point of not being able to drink. Okay, don't allow bars. I understand. Don't allow people to gather. But in the comfort and safety of your own home, to have a drink, I think it's a fundamental right. It needs to be enshrined in the Constitution.
Sitting at home with sweet F-all to do. I mean, why would you deny them having a drink or two? I mean, just sitting at home, playing with yourself every day.
Then say, okay, you can't watch Netflix either.
Exactly.
To spend all their money on OTT and not allow just a glass of Nashik Amchi wine right from here, which benefits our farmers. Cyrus, you might not know a very important fact.
Please tell me.
A bottle of wine gives the most money to a farmer of any packaged good on Earth.
In India. On Earth.
On Earth. So if you take a bottle of our wine at, say, 800 rupees, which is the typical price of, a bottle of our Sula Sauvignon Blanc is around 800 rupees. 100 rupees goes to a grape farmer. $100, man. That's a huge amount. People don't even realize that. You're pumping that straight. You don't just look at it like, look, if you buy a pack of butter or you buy
condoms, for example, which you should buy after drinking the wine. Yeah.
Food goods, so it doesn't quite compare. But you're not giving 100 rupees directly to a farmer, and there's no middleman. There's no guy with a handkerchief in the wine industry, right? There's no goosey-woosey. It's just direct. The farmer delivers grapes to Sula.
Samant lexicon is a separate one. I have to sit and write down these words and teach class after this. No goosey-woosey. Yeah.
Gulu mulu.
What fun.
He says nothing at all by trying to speak.
So you came back from Stanford and the firthing you had to relearn was Marathi, I suppose, being in Nashik. Suddenly.
Yeah. But luckily I had lots of a good lexicon from my dad. My dad has a very rich vocabulary, both in Marathi and English. So I already knew some good choice phrases, unleash at times. And people were like, they were amazed. They used to call me NRI in those days. So once or twice I appeared in the Nashik papers and they called me NRI Rajeev Samant. I'm like, what NRI? I'm here, man. I'm here, son of the soil, Shetkari Rajeev. But I was NRI for a long time.
But coming back to the $100 on the $800, okay, let's not get into the figure, but a chunk that goes. How does it go to the farmer exactly?
So the farmer at harvest time, which in Maharashtra is between January and March, that's our harvest. They bring the trucks of grapes start showing up at the winery, and they are weighed, and then we pay them by the ton. So typically, 70,000 rupees a ton, so 70 rupees a kilo, 80 rupees a kilo, directly from the winery to the wine farmer. And there's a bonus in case that grape makes it into one of our reserve wines, we pay them a bonus. So, so that gives them an incentive for quality. So one of the problems we faced in the beginning was grape farmers and all Indian farmers only focus on quantity. Nobody has ever thought about quality. It's not like France where, you're a wine farmer, you're a cheese, and you got to think about the quality. It's all about quantity. So we had to teach these guys to move away from a full quantity mindset to a quality mindset. And that was a great learning process in itself.
Well, that's fascinating, but because people just give such a bad name to booze. I know wine is slightly more qualities. You're using that word to the rest of booze in the caste system of alcohol. But nobody ever talks about the fact that as an entrepreneur is providing job, sustenance, income, it's motivating people to become better at what they do, since it's a quality product, etc. Why don't we sell this more?
Yeah, I know. I'm not the best marketer. I'm not the best guy putting it out there. That may be why I'm on the podcast.
It's not your job. I'm just saying, why aren't people talking about this more as an entrepreneurial act, which is actually benefiting the environment in a more sustainable way than perhaps government procedures, which everybody talks about Kisan in every speech, and they kill themselves after that.
So it's huge. It's amazing. It's something that I'm very proud about. We are one of the most successful rural-based agro industries. It's very difficult today to come up with an agro industry. If you think about this whole startup culture, et cetera, who's doing anything much with agro? I mean, there's a few guys. I know there's Blue Tokai Coffee. Now there's more and more. But, Sula was probably one of the first where you had a guy coming back from somewhere like Stanford or a US university, me, and then just heading out into a place which was completely alien, and just growing things and giving money back to the farmers. And then if you look at our winery, almost 100% of the people who work in the winery are just from the local village. Cyrus, when I landed up here, our local village of Savargaon, one guy had employment, had a job. One guy. These were displaced Adivasis from the Gangapur Dam. Once when the dam was filled, their village had to move. Zero employment opportunity. And one guy had a job pumping gas at the closest petrol pump. That was his job. So he was a daily wage.
Pumper? Sorry. Not to be insensitive, that guy pumped a lot, yeah.
And the rest of them used to hunt rabbits with bows and arrows.
Wow.
Go out in Gangapur lake in little homemade canoes and try to catch fish and do some sustenance.
Not to be rude, but this will come down from your Stanford life and culture. One day you're hobnobbing with corporate's finest, and then you're chasing rabbits with a stick.
It was amazing, totally life-changing. Yeah, I've watched people...
Tell the truth, Rajeev, do you ever feel that you're doing the wrong thing?
Not rabbits, they were hares because they had really long ears and long legs. So the first time I ever saw a hare was right here on my property, and somebody was chasing it with a bow and arrow.
Only for me to go into the whole bald scalp pun and all that, because that would just be stupid. Yeah.
Winemaker, because nobody in India knew anything about wine, I hired our old chemistry teacher, Mr. Sharma.
Ooh, Mr. Sharma from school.
Mr. Sharma from school was our first...
With a platoon of kids.
And then he brought his shotgun. I don't know if you remember that, Mr. Sharma. He had many passions. He was the official school photographer. He used to cook a mean lal mas. So he cooked like dal bati and lal mas and all. And then he also brought his shotgun. So then from chasing with
rabbits,
then next you had Sharma with his shotgun roaming around the vineyard here. Before I declared it as a zone of peace.
Sorry, Rajeev. This is before Mr. Sharma drank or after?
We had shared many a good glass and bottle of wine together as we were. But yes, he was my first winemaker. When we started, our first crush was 1999. Cyrus, this year, 2020, is 20 years of Sula.
Wow. Excellent.
Yeah. In the year 2000, we sold our first bottle. And I think our first bottle went to Indigo Restaurant. So when Rahul Akerkar, the great restaurateur, when he tasted what we made, our first Sauvignon Blanc which was India's first Sauvignon Blanc, and I believe it was India's best wine up to that moment, because you could actually taste the fact that this was a Sauvignon Blanc. It was the first varietally true wine to be made in India. The winery was not ready, was not complete. We had run out of money. There were no VCs, there was no PE. There was good old Saraswat Cooperative Bank, who said, we know bung all about wine, but because we know your dad and he's been our model customer for 20 years, we're going to give you a loan. But here's what you have to sign. You have to sign away your life, personal guarantee, your house, this, that. So that's the way I started. I'm sure there's others out there who have the same story, because it isn't all about VC and PE. We did it in the good old way. So we had no roof. So the garage of the house I built with our Bombay architect, famous architect Rahul Mehrotra. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's a tremendous, force on the scene. In the garage of the house, we transformed it into our lab, because our lab was not ready. And Mr. Sharma used to trudge over in his gumboots with some, big gallon jugs, etc. And all the testing and all would happen right here in the garage of my home. That's how we started. And we didn't know if we were going to make it. Sometimes I despaired, especially when I had to deal with government bureaucrats. It was very difficult, very scary.
Would they drink wine at least? But that's always, you have a chance if the guy's a wine drinker.
No, at that time, no. Either they didn't drink or they drank whiskey. That was it. And they definitely didn't like wineries, so they wanted to deny me a permit to build a winery. And it was as difficult for me to persuade the government to give me a license to make wine as it was for me to actually make the wine. That's how tough things were. But then I happened to meet a couple of great politicians, far-seeing, bureaucrats, far-seeing, who said, okay, what is this you're doing? Making wine. Let us just come and visit you and see. They said, okay, this is quite interesting. This has potential. Okay, we're going to help you out. And that was when, this was back when Mr. Sharad Pawar was the chieftain over here. And he's a guy who understands agriculture in India like no one else.
But my point here is that I find it very, you go to buy a supplement at a fitness shop and the guy doesn't work out. Or you go, to buy a drink and the guy doesn't drink, or a vegetarian selling non-veg food. These things are wrong, I feel. It's a very dangerous area to be in.
I do believe that a number of our Maharashtra politicians, as well as bureaucrats, have developed a taste for Maharashtra wine, which is a good...
Was it looked upon as an elitist sort of thing? But I think not too many people before you actually invented wine, let's be honest. And it has a certain hemp quality because of Sula. Before that...
There was Riviera. There was Riviera.
I just don't remember when we'd have parties and all whether we'd invest in wine. And we, I just maybe one bottle.
Party budgets have really gone up ever since we came up.
Then suddenly, 2-3 years down the line after you started, any sort of party, event, thing, Sula would be branded everywhere. And I think, single-handedly moved the wine industry forward. I think it would be modest to say that, but we've done our research. So the point is, how do you get people to, it's a cultural thing. How did you get that cultural thing to happen where wine is cool for beyond, let's say, very rich people? Maybe it had that tag.
So there was a legislative thing that happened first, which was when these guys in power saw that here was a cool product that directly benefits the farmer. It was all about farmer-friendly measures. They removed excise duty on wine overnight. And wow. That had a huge, huge positive impact on our industry. That basically took us from scrabbling cottage industry, not being able to make our debt payments from each vintage because of the excise duty up to our necks, to suddenly everything being sun and light. So there was no excise duty, so you could take that money now and invest it in marketing. You could actually give out free samples. You could go out there and do PR, and especially free samples. I would say to you that in the first couple of years, we gave out a huge number of free bottles. And most of the beneficiaries were, I think, our Bombay Gym members and some Wellington Club members.
Who still wanted free, Rajeev? The moment they see you, there'll be a bottle dena.
So a lot of people just got, gifts of our bottle of wine, saying, hey, this is something new we are doing here, right here in Nashik. Why don't you try? And that was how it got kicked off. And then because we didn't have excise duty, we were able to also give the retailer a good incentive. So they had the incentive to start stocking it. So in order for a product to work and to capture the imagination, apart from capturing the imagination, you also got to get your back end in place. Then when they want to drink it, they got to be able to call their local guy, and it needs to be delivered within half an hour, right? That's the other thing that needs to happen. Then the other thing is it needs to be affordable, etc., etc. So affordability, availability, all of that happened overnight when the government scrapped excise duty on wine, and that remains till today. We don't have excise duty on wine made from grapes grown in Maharashtra, which is produced in Maharashtra and sold in Maharashtra. There's no excise duty.
No excise duty, but farmer duty is there, which you're doing with the with a good conscience. But the point, just very quickly, we're going to break now. I just want to get into the fact that I remember in the early 2000s, maybe the dates are juggled up here. The Sula branding was everywhere. You started opening new things culturally, which seemed to marry with the wine and the people who drink it. Did you start, what was that room that you started, the wine tasting room?
We did, but before that, even before...
Stand up, yeah, go on.
It's something very cool called the E-Tuesday Club.
Right.
I don't remember coming to a couple of them. So there were all these tech startups starting to happen at that time. And all over the world, you had this phenomenon called the First Tuesday Club. So we decided to do our version of it here, called all these guys who are these tech entrepreneurs with the whole ecosystem, the lawyers and the VCs and the Ps and everybody who was, and the media, especially the media, and brought them all to these cool new spots that were opening up in Bombay. Every time we chose a different spot. We even did one in Bangalore and we did one in Pune. And then just everybody who came in got a couple of coupons where they could taste our first two wines, the Sula Sauvignon Blanc and the Sula Chenin Blanc, which to this day is still India's #1 selling white wine, a real favorite, especially with the ladies. And then after that, everybody was mingling, and you had BBC there, you had CNN, you had CNBC, you had...
That's what I'm saying. You were able to do this trendy you were able to marry the brand with this trendy hip culture and a new culture. And everybody was part of that, in the last 20 years. Was that by you? Was that an intentional sort of thing or just sort of organically happened?
I mean, it was intentional. It was organic. Do you think I'm cool and hip, Cyrus? I mean, that's part of the thing. When you
growing up, see, you're a senior. You had legendary parties. You had a reputation. So as a young boy, we all looked up Rajeev Samant. Let's go to, if you've got an invite to a Rajeev Samant party or what have you. I mean, but that's an important point actually, because a guy who knows how to party really wants to make sure that the product is pleasing for everyone, I would presume. Yeah. So
I always loved to party. I thought I threw great parties.
Great parties.
I was always very into music, still am today. Sula Fest came out of that, my love for music. I would say my love for music is probably greater than my love for wine. But
they go well together. I think you cashed in on that.
And, we wedded the two. We had wine being served at places where you had DJs playing or you had, live music happening. Nobody had done all of that before in India. And then the whole thing happened at the same time as all these cool new restaurants coming out. So we've talked already about Indigo. You're talking about Olive. All of that was happening at the same time. You had these cool new bars opening up all over the place. And it just made sense that, you had these Indian cool entrepreneurs. This wasn't the stodgy 5-star hotel with the ballroom and the crystal room and the stodgy 24-hour coffee shop. This wasn't that. This was something very cool, and wearing modern India with something the best of the West or whatever. It was the fusion word is not a great word, but that's what was going on. There was a cultural fusion at a great level, thinking people. And we all came together. And so the restaurants supported us. We supported the restaurants. We were all in it together and everybody wanted to be at those parties.
I've been into so many events where you're not involved personally, but indirectly you are, in the sense that we'd have a poetry reading, it'll be Sula wine. That's all that's there, and maybe cheese. You'd have a stand-up thing, which is Sula wine, and something very nominal to eat with it. These are smaller, sort of eclectic, high-quality things, niche things. But for me, this all happened at the same time, and Sula was right in the middle of that. Everything was with Sula. Sula gave you that chop, that stamp, if you will. And that's the amazing thing. I don't know. I'm sure it wasn't fully intentional or anything, but it's just fabulous that it all worked out like that. And
no, I mean, it is partly intentional. Look, the thing is that, I am, at the end of the day, Bombay, Mumbai, born and bred. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends in Delhi. I have a lot of friends who do a lot of cultural stuff. So many of our friends are the cultural mavens of these cities. And, I've always been a supporter. I've always been a cultural supporter myself. My parents have always been like NCPA members, this, that, and the other. So anytime, NCPA calls and says, look, we want to do a wine bar during the intermission, we're like, Sula needs to be there. It doesn't matter whether it's going to cost us money, whether we're going to make some money. No, Sula needs to be there. We're doing a friend of mine is doing a book launch. Hey, wine is on us. So there are a lot of smaller things where, it's nice to get personally involved. We are not yet a huge corporate where everything's impersonal and you just look at return on marketing dollars and all of that. So yes, we do a lot of small events, which I love. I mean, I think that gives you your soul and you should never lose that.
No, I think it's done wonders for the brand. But what's happened is for the last 15, 20 years, all these different things, all these small pieces have come together as a large, huge sort of subculture which goes with the Sula experience. And you, my friend, are pulling the strings there, changing a generation with and helping farmers at the same time. I can see a Padma Shri, or maybe a Padma Vibhushan. I'll have to check which one's available, depending on COVID.
Nobody in government has ever approached me with anything close to an award. All I've been done is raided by every single government organization, as an entrepreneur must be. So one sign of success is chalo, income tax raid, enforcement directorate questions, sales tax raid.
Rajeev, today is revolutionary, tomorrow's prime minister. You do the whole gamut, you know that. No, but it's very interesting. I just think that people who look back at this entire era, there's no way they can ignore Sula. The whole growth of India, the dynamic India from, let's say, 2000 to where we are today, the role you've played across pan-India, because I can think of 2,000 examples in all different things, as well as huge events. So I'm sure you're very proud, and I'm sure you're charging a lot, and now you've got more money than you can actually count. You can probably save 2 or 3 countries' GDP, starting with ours, which has gone down the tube.
Oh
apparently.
My God, let's not start about it.
We will do that. We'll take a break and we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more, just a little bit more about the Sula experience. I want to talk about the Nashik experience when we come back.
I want to thank Intel for supporting our show. We're all loving working from home, but let's be honest, there are complications to this. For example, getting help from IT folks if your PC is down can be a challenge because you can't just walk up to the IT support desk anymore to get your issue sorted out. Well, you'll be happy to hear that I have a solution for all your work from home pains. The Intel vPro platform. The platform comes packed with Intel Active Management technology that lets your IT teams remotely manage your system, fix the problems even when the PCs aren't near them or are unresponsive, especially with the reduced desk site visits. So it means more time getting your work done and less time spent on getting support. What's more, the vPro platform also maximizes all your PC security, stability, and performance needs. Visit intel.in/morewithvpro, that's VPRO, to discover how you can do more of what you want and less of what you don't. If you're listening on the IVM Podcast Android app, you will be able to click the link that's visible to you now.
All right, back here, Rajeev Samant, entrepreneur, wine lover. I don't think sommelier, I'm still unclear about what that word exactly means, but driven with more than just wine. I still... One thing before we get into the Nashik experience, just tell us, just if you can go back in your mind, and when you just started, were you scared, Rajeev? Because, I mean, you did everything correctly and perfectly right all your life, and then you just took a right turn. And it was like, it's a very romantic thing now when we look back, of course, and its success and all that. But were you scared? You must have been a little scared.
A little scared, but I've always been a massive optimist. And I think to be an entrepreneur, you have to be an optimist, right? Otherwise, you're not going to jump into these waters. I was always very stressed because we were always on the verge of being shut down by some government authority, or, the first batch of wine that we made, it tasted great, but 3 months later, it was sedimenting with some crystals inside. We hadn't done our stabilization properly. And, I was going out and doing tastings with, the Ambassador Hotel and the Taj Hotel. I remember that was a huge victory to get listed on the Taj menu. I still remember that meeting. And then suddenly I would find that the wine that I was about to open the bottle had crystals on the bottom. So quickly before going in, I'd shake the bottle, then the crystals weren't there, and then, taste like that. So there was always, it's huge stress. Building a company is huge stress. And sure, there's some fear, but you just have to plow on ahead, bullheaded, persuade everyone that this is a success, this is going to be a success, take everyone along with you, and that's the way you got to do it. But listen, when I had to go back to the banks, when I had to go back to our investors, once or twice to say, guys, our financial projections have not happened as expected. I need a little more money just to tide us over. Those were stressful times. That's never fun as an entrepreneur to go with a, sort of a begging bowl in your hand and be at the mercy. But I must say,
why did you just come to Bombay Gym on a Friday night? People drink too much, they'll sign checks, and would have been done in seconds.
Given me, just cross checks and taken bottles instead. But,
I'm sure they'll still ask you for free bottles if you meet them.
Yeah, absolutely. They still curse me and hug me at the same time. They hug me for saying, thank you for giving us such a nice wine. They curse me saying my bloody household budget doubled because of your wine. So I always get some thappad and some kiss at BG. So anyway, listen, it's starting a new project is always very stressful for an entrepreneur. And sure, there's so many times when you're like, what the hell did I do? I had the cushiest job in Silicon Valley. I was one of the first, Indians to go there, be in a great company. Oracle was just, even today, it's a huge multi-billion dollar company. It was a great life. And I threw all of that off to come back here and, go out. I used to take the local train. out to Nashik. And, it was something called a Kasara local. I don't know if you've ever ridden on that. Oh, my God. So you get into a local, you get off.
Let me just be clear. The local is the train or just the local?
The local train.
Okay. I thought you were riding the locals. I thought, they're going to shut the podcast down now.
It ends at the central line, ends at Kasara. And then from Kasara, you used to take these sort of old Willys Jeep taxis, which were tied together, I kid you not, with string and wire.
Wow.
And the number of accidents that I had in those, they were overloaded, they were horrible, smelly. I won't tell you about some of the other adventures that happened as a result of all of that. And I thought I was going to die so many different times. It's a total miracle that I came out of that alive on that Nashik Bombay highway. It was a highway of death, one of the most dangerous highways in India. I had so many accidents. I got out in one piece to tell the story, but it's so sad how many of our people we lose to road deaths every year. If there's one thing the virus has done, it's reduced the number of road deaths. Yeah. Okay, so 70,000 people have died, but probably 1 lakh less people died on the road. Sorry, I know you can say some irreverent.
No, I won't. My love for humanity is already withered thanks to this lockdown and seeing the same ugly faces every day and talking to the same people. Hence, I don't care about clothes and stuff. Convention be damned now. No, but it's a very interesting journey. Let's just quickly, we don't have time to talk about everything, unfortunately, but let's get into that whole Nashik picnic, what atmosphere. Where do you come up with that? That became a big hit as well. Visit Nashik for the weekend.
So California was my inspiration. So the whole music festival thing. Listen, when I was at Stanford, I went to Frost Amphitheater, beautiful open air amphitheater, and I saw my first Grateful Dead show.
Wow.
This was in 1985. It blew my mind. Life was never the same again. And, when I looked at the whole thing, I said, why? Why have I never been to an amphitheater in India, apart from Rang Bhavan, which hardly qualifies?
Well, that's just like a parking space with a stage. But anyway,
I know. So I said, this is so easy to create. You just dig out a little earth and you have an amphitheater. And so it was something that stayed in me. And the whole thing of music and wine is very much a part of the whole wine experience in California and Australia. And I said, and music and then tasting. If you're going to make wine, you got to invite people. You got to build a beautiful little place and you got to have them taste at the place where the wine is made. That really creates ambassadors for life. So it's a part of our, it's very important for the marketing of a brand. And, we have such a beautiful spot here. So I said, come on, we got to create something beautiful. That was, again, a tussle with the authorities because even though they had taken out excise duty on wine, if you made alcohol in India, you're supposed to put barbed wire, iron bars. Anyone signing in and out, it's like you have to do a nokarnama. Oh, my God, it was
Why?
Great, because it's a worse crime to steal booze without excise than it is to murder or rape anyone. It's
okay. Fair enough.
It's a
non-acceptable, yes.
Non-bailable offense if you're found with a couple cases extra of what the authorities think is excise unpaid alcohol in your car. Are you aware of that?
This is fabulous. So I can kill a man with a good lawyer. I'll get out on bail. But if I get 2 bottles extra, which I can't account for,
it's a non-bailable offense.
Non-bailable, 15 years. Okay.
So
I'm okay with the law.
Change the authorities' mindset that, we're actually going to allow the public in to what they called a manufactory, which we today call a winery, to actually taste the wine on premise. It was just a mind F. But we managed once again, some of the ministers had been to California, etc., seen it and said, yes, do it. Along with the winery license, you get automatically a tasting room license. That was the change that we had made to the law. It's a huge change. And that's what kicked it off. So we created India's first winery tasting room. It's the most visited winery in the world, Cyrus.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent.
4 lakh visitors in the year just before pandemic. 4 lakh. No other winery in the world gets that many visitors. And I do believe it's the place in the world where more people taste their first glass of wine than anywhere else on the planet.
So you've created another market called the virgin wine drinker market. You've got that by the scrotum, if I may use a friendly term. Excellent.
Here you would see for yourself. You look at our customers, you think this person is a wine drinker. No, they're not. But we are the missionaries. We are the wine missionaries. We're not doing anything wrong here.
No, but the government's got it wrong. Maybe they should enforce 1 glass of wine per day per family or something like that, going forward, just to chill out a little bit.
I tell you. But, we've managed to convert a lot of people away from spirits. What we said when we started is, look, if we convert 1% of everybody who drinks spirits to wine and 1% of everybody who doesn't drink to wine, our fortune and future is made.
Well, you've already started the revolution. I think all kinds of types drink wine now. There's no one sort of, it's only for rich women or this or that. It's all over. Everybody drinks wine. And I think that's the Sula. You should get paid for the competitors who are making money, because the whole industry has risen. Isn't that what good economics is all about? So I think you should take a little hafta, go around and just get a little 10%.
I would have an award right after this show. I really thank you.
No, but I think we're all very proud of you, Rajeev. There's nothing to feel embarrassed about or anything like that. I think because I just love stories where people do things differently. I mean, we know you come from a rich background. We know everything was going well for you and all that, but you had the testicles to just throw it away, which very few people have this story.
There's grades of rich.
Oh, come on, brother. I saw your cars growing up. My father washed your father's car. Show some respect.
We had a Premier Padmini. Then we had a Willys Jeep. We had a black Ambi. I mean, come on. Then
you had a Willys Jeep tied to a taxi in Nashik for your ultimate experience. Your karma is a real bitch. Came back to haunt you. No. So listen. I think you've done fantastically. Just the guts to do something different is what human story should be about. But let's leave that there for a second. One quick word on the pandemic, if we can, because we're running a little late here. You said you've got through it more or less unscathed, but going forward, what's going to happen with this whole restriction on people meeting? Because live events and people meeting and, all that is part of your business.
So one of the things we did early on was we decided to call off Sula Fest 2021. And, that's a blow. That's a blow to all of us. We love our festival. It's become one of the greatest, winery music festivals in the world, close to 15,000 people coming. But, we just looked at it and said, it's so uncertain. We don't know if we'll get the permission. We definitely won't get the sponsors. International acts are not going to want to fly in. Let's just take a break for a year. So we ourselves are, were the first to call off a big international, a music, a live event. Listen, for me personally, this has been an amazing time. It's 6 months that I've been here in Nashik. I've come back to what I've loved doing. I have worked with my winemaking team, my amazing winemaking team here, to craft our 2020 vintage, and I have thoroughly enjoyed that. I would like to say to everyone out there, get yourselves a bottle of the 2020. There's a little bit of Rajeev Samant's heart and soul.
Hey, Rajeev, you're opening a can of worms there. Sorry to interrupt. Because when you go back, let's say it's 2030, nobody wants to remember 2020. I'm sure they'll all be like, no.
There's one good thing to live well. There's hopefully one more thing that will happen in the US, but we're not going to talk about that. It raises my blood pressure. But hopefully.
Oh, November, I see.
Do the right thing.
What,
but
you're not pro Donald Trump? What kind of person are you?
Oh my God. Let's not get started on that. So the 2020 Sula vintage is something that's tasting beautiful. And for me, it's reopened, some great memories and just some, I've been loving my time here. It's very nuclear. It's my wife. I got married at 50. So
Oh yeah. Excellent.
I have other examples.
And how is your 21-year-old wife? Lovely.
Oh, Cyrus, my 2-year-old daughter, we are all three of us here together. My parents were also here for 3 months, so they got to spend a lot of time with their granddaughter. And, our family unit, we have all our own organic fruits and veggies and, bake our own bread. And we're having a grand old time doing just that since 6 months. I've gotten into a car once in 6 months to go to my other property Beyond down the road. You know that we have a couple of beautiful resorts here, Source, Beyond. Beautiful and hauntingly empty. That is a tragedy. We just added 20 rooms to the Source, and then we had to shut down 1 month later. I've just been watching these beautiful buildings empty of people. But this weekend, we're back 100% occupancy.
Wow.
Yeah. So
excellent.
Seeing people back on this campus. Unfortunately, restaurants can't yet open. So let's just talk about what the future holds. The future is very uncertain. I think the government could have done a lot more and could have done a lot of things a lot better. I don't want to get more into that. A lot of us do feel a bit let down by what happened. The finance ministry could have stepped up more. If you look at what's happening in some of the other countries around the world, a lot more is being done. We don't hear anything. We are just here deafening, quiet, and silence. And we paid for it, down 24%. It's going to be a long, hard slog out of this. So many people's dreams have been crushed. It's tough. I don't know really what the future holds. India is a poor country. We cannot
afford such a long
and
lay away from.
Now, I believe we just need to open up quickly and let the states and let people take responsibility for their own lives. People are responsible. You don't have here some illegal raves happening with 100 like you have in, when they opened up England. Immediately the next day you had, these forests with ravers and all. Man,
but Rajeev, what if that happens? It's 1.3 billion people. And some of that will happen. I'm saying still go on. There's no way you can police everybody anyway. Let the majority have a chance to survive.
I agree with you. I have a feeling that in some cases, the people in power have allowed their own personal circumstances to dictate.
Or they panicked. They just panicked because a lot of it sounds like just fear, unbelievable fear, because they didn't have any idea. Well, fair enough, whatever.
I think we need to now go back to normalcy very quickly. Again, they announced in Maharashtra restaurants can't get open. Now, come on, guys. It's a restaurant. What's going to happen? Tell people to stay a meter distant. Tell people that they can't be serving at the bar, but allow people to go into a restaurant. The servers have to wear masks. Everybody is sanitizing everything.
You're anyway cutting down their income by allowing only so many people. I mean, what more do you want? They should shoot the restaurateurs. Because what we do with sick animals, you kill everyone who's going to anyway die of economic.
Allowed. There's no proof that the virus spreads in swimming pools. There's chlorine in swimming pools. They should be allowed to open. So I think now we are just it's all going a bit too far.
Absolutely. My fear is politicians who don't drink. You mentioned Mr. Trump from the other country. The record of politicians, going back to Adolf Hitler, who don't drink alcohol is the worst in the world. I can give you a list. So I won't harp on it. But if you don't drink, you shouldn't. Sorry?
Let's go down that road.
Just don't be in charge of countries when you don't touch alcohol. I'm not saying get drunk. Yeah.
All of them to have one glass of Nashik wine, drink local, drink sustainable. We are one of the most sustainable wine operations on earth.
This has become a big ad for Rajeev Samant. Have you not noticed?
2 megawatts of installed solar panels ourselves. So we are mostly off the grid. And we have run a huge sustainable enterprise here. And, you just have a glass of this beautiful sunlight into wine, Nashik sunlight into a beautiful glass.
You should get environmental awards. You should get humanity awards for helping the economy awards, industry and entrepreneurship awards, and maybe one day statesmanship awards, because I think all that's left is politics from where we sit. The Sula party coming soon. How's that? Although we have an SP in UP.
No. I'm a supporter of our good politicians here who drink wine and who remove our excise duty. I am there. Let them do their good work. That's also God's work, and I'm also doing God's work. Whichever God they want, it's not a problem. I think no awards and all, man. I'm not that religious, but that one good old Hindu saying about just do your work well and forget about the fruits of it. The first thing when somebody calls me and says, I'm going to give you an award, is I run the other way. I'm like, sorry, please give it to somebody else more deserving. So, no, I'm very happy. If you drink a glass of my wine, that's my award.
All right, Rajeev, sorry, we have to stop it there. Superb story, mostly made up. No, I'm kidding. Fabulous journey all the way from Stanford to the fields of Nashik.
You got that part.
No, it's all good. Let's hope that the world comes back to normal and people can come to your beautiful place and all your lovely resorts and enjoy life. Life is about enjoyment. I don't see the point otherwise.
Simple pleasure of sharing a bottle of wine with somebody else's wife.
Yeah, you're telling me. All right. Let's quickly get to the AMAs if we can. If you stay for 2 minutes, just a couple of questions that we get in.
Absolutely.
Welcome, everybody, to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Intel. It's been a great week on the network this week. If you haven't been paying attention, please do listen to some of the shows. We had Chetan Bhagat. This was the first returning guest on Cyrus Says. Do check that out. Great episode. We had Palak Zatakia on Advertising is Dead. Really interesting conversation was had with Varun. We had another crossover on the habit codes. Zarina Poonawala showed up over there to have a discussion with Ashton about anxiety and pressure. Begin the Journey with Ashi Vidyarthi continues to kill it. Please definitely do check it out. An old friend, Vijay Koshi, was on Storytellers and Storysellers. Do check that out as well. And I'd like to mention one thing. If you're a Tamil speaker, you should definitely check out our podcast, Kadai Podcast, Punyan Selvan. Kavita Jiva has done a fantastic job to finish up her first story. It is the last episode which just came out last Monday. Do check it out if you speak Tamil. It is an incredible achievement. Please do check that out. And with that, let's get you onto your show.
Follow me at Instagram and Twitter on Bored Brocha. I'm so bored, I need your help. I need your love. I need your touch. Okay, just follow me. And Silvery is the man. Yeah.
These are some questions that I saved because I knew that Rajeev was going to be on. So these are like, maybe he'll be able to give a better perspective on this. So the first one comes in from Vivek Priyadarshi. He asks, hi Cyrus and guest. If the news channels are to be believed, whole of Bollywood is on drugs. If such a large proportion of the affluent society is consuming drugs, shouldn't the government legalize it and tax it heavily the way it does for alcohol? That way, it may relieve a lot of stress for news channels, policemen, judiciary, who are chasing the peddlers and consumers. More importantly, it may help the government to counter the act of God through additional revenues. What do you think?
Yeah, I think before we let Rajeev answer this in a more technical and less biased way, my point is, why are they watching these effing news channels? Vivek, stop watching this rubbish. The world is bleeding, and you're bothered about 8 actors who may snort cocaine once a week. I mean, really, put things in perspective for God's sake. You know, there's things to look at. He just mentioned about jobs being scarce and about a year to rebound from a 24% GDP fall and all that. Nobody's thinking about the real point. Or is it all being pushed down our throats so we don't think about it? Because who gives a flying F about people snorting cocaine on the weekend in their bloody private parties? It doesn't affect anyone. So let's put it in perspective, but let Rajeev answer since he's the master of ceremonies here. Rajeev.
Listen, I would much prefer that people drink wine. So if you make drugs illegal, then they have to drink wine, so I make more money. Yeah. But I must say, a more nuanced view of this is that I have never been an opponent of what you call soft drugs. So smoking a little marijuana or, having a little bhang. Man, that's something that's been in our culture, the culture of this land for centuries, way before alcohol. It grows beautifully up in the hills of Himachal and where have you. Man, you should allow the farmers to grow it. It should be taxed. It should go through the excise system. There should be absolutely no problem. You buy even today, if you go to parts of Rajasthan, you can buy a packet of bhang. Why not allow that through the country? I have no problem with it. But hard drugs is problematic. But in terms of allowing pot, marijuana, bhang, these things should be allowed, taxed, and then let the acts of God recede.
What about coffee? Coffee can be dangerous. You have 400, 500 milligrams of coffee and you go berserk. I've seen people do pull-ups on a fan.
Tobacco.
I say ban coffee. Tobacco, exactly. Where do you stop?
Cancer. So, you're legalizing that. Alcohol is legal. Anything that's ghasfus.
Watch what you say now, Rajeev. Let me take it from here.
Legal. Ghasfus should be legal.
Yeah. But so exactly, just yesterday, you won't believe this. I read a news article that said, in a landmark decision, Pakistan approves industrial use of cannabis and hemp. So if Pakistan is starting this, why are we behind, man? If we want to compete with Pakistan every day, what are they doing?
What are they?
Exactly.
Whatever. No, I think it grows in this area. It grows in Pakistan. It grows in Afghanistan. It grows in
absolutely. Correct.
And it's been there for ages. It's not like they're going to stop.
Correct.
What about the right to privacy? Ask Vivek that we should fight for the right to privacy. Not to say that people should do or not do drugs. That's another issue. My point is, whatever happens in somebody's house or party, I think it should not be on the English news channels at 9 o'clock. They should have more things to do. But I'll take that to another forum. The
central agency of this country of 1.3 billion people investigate the suicide of a poor depressed guy and then bring up all of this whole rigmarole is a bit of a pain in the A.
And Rajeev, it's leading. The story leads every day. It's a fictitious sort of account. It's just being led.
Haven't let it go yet?
No. It's still going on. And we've just crossed the most number of COVID cases worldwide, blah, blah, blue, all that.
In the UK, you call it the silly season. It's that time of year when people are on holiday, have nothing else to do but, kill flies. And then any story runs. Yeah. So this is our silly season.
Yeah, but in the UK, you have the Daily Mirror and all for that. So if you want to look at rubbish, you read it. But every channel, including the vernacular channels, has picked up this story. Because
you have that spexy guy who shouts
Yes, that one learned man, he's corrupted the singular mind of the country. Sorry, let's not cry.
Should we get one more?
Yeah.
Should we get one more question? Okay. This one again is alcohol related. Sent in by Anveer Rath. He says, "Hi Cyrus and guest. Love listening to Cyrus for the last 3 years. Keep up this much needed podcast. Thank you. I'm 32 years old, working for an ad agency, and I think I'm a high functioning alcoholic. I used to finish close to 1 bottle of whiskey a day. Recently, my girlfriend suggested that if I'm going to drink this much, I should shift to wine as it's slightly healthier.
Yes. Yes.
That just made me start drinking more. Instead of 1 bottle of whiskey, I finished 3 to 4 bottles of wine a day.
My God, I love this man.
Rajeev,
I should not encourage this.
No, one second. Why not? One second. I'll encourage it. See, I think let's just be open here. It's not like human beings all function the same way. We're custom-made people. All right. I know a squash champion, my dad's schoolmate back in the day, Fali, who 3 times won the nationals in India. He used to smoke between every game. He finished a game, then he'd have a cigarette, then he won 3 nationals. So, I mean, who's to say what works? There's so many cricketers, footballers who've drunk and performed. I mean, not saying that you should do it, but it's just too much of we have to have this one size fits all the time.
So is he looking for a recommendation on what wine he should drink 3 bottles of?
So
yes. He wants.
Let me just quickly finish the question. I'll just quickly finish the question. He says, instead of 1 bottle of whiskey, I finish 3 to 4 bottles of wine a day. Quite often, I'm even drunk or hungover at work. I feel much more dehydrated when I drink the wine. I feel like I was way more functional when I was drinking whiskey. Should I shift back? Also, does this seem like normal 32-year-old behavior to you?
Let's just cut that off for a sec. Let me make it very clear. This is not something that we encourage. Irreverence aside, anyone drinking more than, say, 2 glasses, even of wine a day, is in trouble. Is going to be in trouble.
But is there a difference in the hangover? I'm not a wine drinker, honestly. Is there a difference in if you could
between 1 bottle of whiskey and 3 bottles of wine? There's no difference. You are going to be hung the bloody hell over.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
It's ridiculous actually that you need help. You need help. You need to drink less. You should drinking wine instead of whiskey is a good thing, but not drinking 3 bottles of wine instead of 1 bottle of whiskey. Maybe drinking 2 glasses of wine instead of 1 glass of whiskey. That's a good thing.
But 3 bottles of wine will save so many more farmers if we do the maths. Sometimes you take one for the team. He's hungover, the corporation suffers, but we have 100 people working in your area and their families prosper. So
I'm okay. Be careful, otherwise excise commissioner will put me in without a warrant.
You haven't said anything. I haven't. I don't own a liquor license of any kind. Don't worry. Yeah.
I've got my excise permit. It used to say on this permit in Maharashtra that I certify my for medical reasons. I need to.
I have it too.
That's what my permit used to say. Now, luckily, they don't make us all liars every single day.
It's gone.
Permits.
They don't have that sentence anymore. I still have the old permit somewhere.
Yeah, no, that sentence is gone, thankfully.
That we're all very sick and we need it for medical reasons. Oh, beautiful.
They removed that statement.
No! The country is changing and in the wrong way.
It's a great party trick. When you're in a bar in New York, you need to have your party trick. When you took out that excise license and you showed it, man, it was done. Done deal.
Who is the third world country now, Mr. New York? Yeah, excellent. All right, Rajeev, I think we have to wrap it up here. Thank you so much. We'll let you go back to your life of leisure in Nashik. And hopefully everything gets a little better sooner or later. But even if it doesn't, there's always Sula wine.
There we go. Your constant lockdown companion and savior.
There you go. Sula wine and Silvery and me.
Wonderful to have been on this podcast. Keep the flag flying high.
All right. I hope that doesn't mean anything because I'm on medication for all kinds of stuff. But anyway.
The deviant flag flying high.
The deviant, of course. There's too much goody-goodiness in this country anyway. It drives me mad. Middle-class morality, everybody in the building telling you what to do. I want to urinate on my neighbors. I just want to pull it out and pee on them. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the feeling I have every single day.
Sula, don't pee your Sula. Please have some.
In fact, let me pee my Sula so there's a quality when it happens. Yeah. On that sophisticated note, as Cathedral to Cathedral, bye-bye.
Bye, Cyrus. Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. Bye, Silvery.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, catch us on any of the podcasting apps, please. We beg you, we need you. Send us your questions on Twitter on Cyrus Says In. Or you can email us, even if you're not female, on whatcyrussays@gmail.com.
Beta, did you know 79% of all scientists in NASA are Indian only?
देखो, इंडिया में टैक्स सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास भरती है. Everyone is just enjoying free यार.
आजकल के youngsters are only interested in partying and enjoying. उनको देश की पड़ी ही नहीं है.
बेटा तुम बस शादी कर लो, उसके बाद तो you can enjoy life like anything.
I will tell you what this country needs. This country needs 15 years of dictatorship. That is the only way to become a superpower. See the Chinese, how much they've progressed.
सुनो, तुमने ये WhatsApp forward देखा?
So what's common between all of these statements?
They're all absolutely rubbish.
Fake WhatsApp forwards that spread like wildfire.
And statements that defy any logic.
We are here to debunk them all.
Way of family WhatsApp groups, worst nightmare. Where what happens when you read a book.
Basically, we are just a bunch of guys who want to cut through the bullshit of everyone saying this, how it won't be true.
So that the next time someone confidently squeezes out some WhatsApp or Twitter BS, you can look them dead in the eye and go, Uncle, please sit.
So join me, Joel,
and me, Tushar,
every Mondays for a fresh new episode of Uncle, Please Sit.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. Tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.